I say I'm retired from sluttery. I recently became the stepmother to a dog. Wow. Wow, I know, he's really cute. You might see him or you might not. I don't know, he's not on the lineup. But people say like, oh, over time you grow to look like your dog. And I was like, well, I am not interested in waiting for that. So I immediately got bangs for the dog. When we walk down the street, people are always like, oh my God, amazing bangs. I'm like, thank you. And they're like, mm-hmm. They always mean him. He really, really kills it with those bangs. But recently, he had a little health scare, and he's fine. Like, I don't want the tension of this room to be like, is the dog okay? He's okay. But we had to take him to the vet, and I was like, oh my gosh, this dog has been like my boyfriend's rock, Like, this dog means everything to my boyfriend, so I need to be strong and supportive and just like take care of him during this time. So the vet comes into the room and says, hey, so we're just gonna need to take the dog in the other room for blood work really quick. And I said, you're taking him away from us, and burst into tears. Supportively, strongly. So then eventually he needs an MRI, which I don't know if you've ever had an MRI, but the cost is not different for a dog. They don't care that the spine is shorter. They do not care. And so he gets this MRI. We go in to talk to the vet, and the vet is like, so kind of just looking through this, for his age, his MRI is unremarkable. Thank you, right? First of all, fuck you. Second of all, let's try to have some remarks. This was really expensive, We can just say something like, wow, what a handsome MRI, or oh, wow, this MRI seems so nice to have in bed at night. Anything, please. And that's what a comedian does when you don't remember the last. Okay, I remembered it. I spent COVID in New York City. Wow, thank you. She's a hero. Incredible. No, don't clap at 7 p.m. for me. So I was in my little apartment in New York City, and it's mental health was not at an all-time high. I kind of had a rough time during 2020. Wow, very unique, very alone in that way. And I started screwing up at work. Constantly, every screw up begat another screw up. So I was just in a fuck up spiral, you know what I mean? And so my boss puts a meeting on my calendar, and his name is Greg, and that's not his fault, but it is helpful for you to know. And Greg played sports in college. So I was like, Greg is gonna Vince Lombardi me right out of this fuck up. Greg is gonna help me get right out of this, right? And I know who Vince Lombardi is because I once saw a Broadway play called Lombardi starring the dad from The Wonder Years. He was wonderful. So Greg and I hop on our Zoom, and Greg is I'm like, Greg, I'm so sorry. I know I've been screwing up. And he said, yeah, everyone has noticed. Not one of Vince Lombardi's more famous speeches. Did not make the play. And he goes, but it's okay. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get you a printer. Thank you, that's the right face for that. And I thought to myself, I can think of one note I'm gonna print out of that printer and then never use it again. And so the next day I go to get a physical. And the doctor sits me down in the chair before we start, and she's like, before we get started, let's just check in. How are you doing? And I said, well, Greg thinks I need a printer, and I don't know if the world's gonna open back up, and I'm just gonna be responsible for this printer forever. What if I break it and I have to tell Greg I broke a printer? And she was like, oh, okay, maybe instead of a physical, today we do kind of a mental health check-in. Have you ever thought about going on Prozac? And I said, I don't think I need that. And she said, I'm sure you don't. Well, Prozac is a slow-release drug, as you know, and a printer takes 6 weeks in a supply chain situation, so they both hit around the same time, and I don't know which one did it, but I do want to really seriously address everybody in the room and say, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, please talk to somebody who can help you get a printer.